Raining. Raining. February 27, 2026. You ride with your boy Doug. We're heading to Marietta, Georgia. And I'm taking you with me. But first, we gotta go pull over for the cars. We have to get the fuel that's required. God damn, will you come on? So motherfucker. never fucking give you a fucking receipt, man.
God save that.
Rest, smart, bold, and always ahead of the curve.
Certainly, everybody can get behind that.
Outnumbered on Fox News, America is watching.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most sought-after anti-aging products available today. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags in as little as 10 minutes. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects will last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results.
Look at this one under-eye bag. It's gone.
I've tried it all, and then I found Plexiderm, and this happened.
The best news, in this super inflated economy, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95 and free shipping. So don't wait, just call the number on your screen.
Call 800-460-3618.
Well, the Trump administration taking the message of economic recovery on the road. The president heading to Texas tomorrow. Meantime, Vice President J.D. Vance pushing the affordability agenda in Wisconsin. Marianne Rafferty live with what the VP said. Marianne, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Trace. Well, it feels like the midterm campaign season's already underway with VP Vance touting his role as the president's point man in their war on fraud. Also calling out Democrats over their party's priorities.
The question in November is, do we give power to the people who fight for corruption, who fight for fraud, who fight for illegal aliens, or do we give the government to the American citizens for whom it was designed and for whom it was created?
And the vice president also calling out the left for what he says is their role in making everything more expensive for Americans.
Hearing the Democrats talk about affordability is like hearing an arsonist complain about fire. It's your fault. You guys left us a country with sky-high inflation.
And happy election season, huh, Trace?
Yeah, beginning. Marianne, thank you. Let's bring in former homicide detective Rachel Evans and trial attorney Reagan Charleston Thomas. Thank you both for coming on. Reagan, to you first. I want to play a little more sound from the vice president. He's talking about Minnesota fraud while he's in Wisconsin. He said the following.
You had Somali fraudsters who were saying that their kids were autistic even though they weren't. They were collecting a fat check from all of you, and they were getting rich from it. You've got special needs kids in American communities that we ought to be helping, and instead of helping them, we're helping fraudsters who don't have the problem to begin with. That is a scandal.
I mean, we all get the fact that the Minnesota politicians just hate anybody from the administration, Reagan, but, you know, you're a trial attorney and you think you want to go after fraud. Wouldn't you think they would welcome this? Like, any help we can get to try to weed out the extensive fraud in our state, but they don't. And I'm wondering why. Why do you think?
Well, it's just political warfare all around. And, you know, we can all agree that fraud is bad. And we should all be supporting a war on fraud, especially when you're talking about fraud that harms vulnerable communities, when the federal dollars aren't going to the actual communities in need and instead are going to scammers and fraudsters. That's not good for anyone. So, you know, when you don't have someone backing a war on fraud or seeking to uncover who's behind these scams, you really have to question the motives.
Yeah, you really do. Meantime, when you talk about motives and questioning the motives, I want you to watch this video because this is a trucker, 80,000 pounds, going down the wrong way in Missouri. We're going to pause. Watch.
Northbound lanes on Highway 61.
It is crazy, Rachel, and here's what the Missouri Highway Patrol statement reads. During the stop, there was no sign of impairment or medical issues. He was issued a citation for the wrong way driving. Our commercial vehicle enforcement troopers conducted a driver inspection and determined the driver could not properly identify road signs as mandated by federal motor carrier regulations. Per federal motor carrier guidelines, he was placed out of service and not allowed to continue driving. I mean, the most dangerous vehicle on the freeway, and you give someone a license, just said, go ahead, go do it. I mean, come on. I know you're a homicide detective, but this is as close to, homicides as you're going to get.
Yeah, there's a lot of negligence there, right? So you have somebody gave him a driver's license, somebody allowed him to drive, and somebody was in that car with him and allowed him to drive. I'm assuming the partner was sleeping maybe while he was driving, but why would you let him drive if you don't even know if he's able to do that or not?
Yeah, and the craziest thing about this is that when they were tested, he had to take this license test somewhere, right? And you fail it, and someone's like, just keep it between us. It's kind of crazy.
It is.
Reagan, previous FBI, subpoenaed these records. We're learning more about this of Kash Patel, the now FBI director, and the now chief of staff, Susie Wiles. Kash Patel, he wrote the following here, or Axios actually wrote the following saying, quote, Wiles in shock over FBI phone record subpoena. It goes on to say, Trump officials familiar with the investigation tell Axios that revelations might be the tip of the iceberg. Wiles tells associates, I am in shock. And Jonathan Turley said this today about Jack Smith's tactics on this.
With regard to the Wiles phone call, I was floored by this account. If it is true, it does raise very serious ethical questions for that counsel. But it also, again, raises questions about the tactics of Jack Smith and why we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to learn from this.
Yeah, we need to learn from it. This is the party that's constantly saying the other party is assaulting democracy. I mean, this is a pretty underhanded thing.
Certainly looks that way. And while these are lawful subpoenas that are issued, the controversy is that these were private citizens that were being surveilled through these subpoenas that were ultimately hidden. And all of the records were contained in these prohibited files where it made it almost impossible to audit. It was almost impossible to have any oversight on these records. And it's highly suspect, it's highly questionable and tenable. And what's more important here is the conversation earlier that you just heard about the counsel that recorded the phone call. I mean, there's some significant ethical issues that need to be cleared up here.
Yeah, I think we're at the beginning of this. Meantime, here's a forensic expert. You've been kind of helping us cover this Guthrie trial, or the Guthrie case. Here's a forensic expert comparing the Nancy Guthrie case to the Bryan Kohberger case, the murders in Idaho. Watch.
Bryan Kohberger literally created bookends around the crime by turning off his device. He disabled cellular, disabled Wi-Fi, and turned off his phone. That is extreme measures to not have a digital footprint. So he really took all the steps, but still made a mistake. So we hope in Nancy Guthrie that whoever has her made a mistake and that we can uncover that footprint.
It's part of your industry. You just wait for people to make mistakes, right, Rachel?
Correct. And they always do. I've solved cases in 3 hours. I've solved cases in a year and a half. And I've solved cases from 1956. So they're all uniquely different. And so because of that, you just have to keep on the pace and keep going because someone's going to make a mistake.
The question is, does it take a long time to actually put these together? Because it's been almost a month, right? That Nancy Guthrie has been gone. Does it take a while to get these things put together?
It can, because there's a lot that goes behind the scenes. There's a lot that goes behind getting warrants and getting those things done and then analyzing that data. And you can't do any missteps. You have to be very meticulous in everything that you do so that you don't miss anything as you go.
So even if they made a mistake, whoever did this, it could be a while.
Correct.
Rachel, Reagan, thank you both. Well, beyond the headlines, here's what we were scrolling through tonight. Newly resurfaced video of anti-ICE protesters back in October threatening violence against content creator Nick Shirley and other political opponents.
I will f*** you up, bro. I'm violent as f***, bro. Find out. You want to find out how violent I am?
Meantime, dashcam video capturing the moment a garbage man in Ohio alerts police to a runaway suspect in the trash bin. The suspect fled from authorities during a traffic stop on Monday, then popped out of the bin, leading police on a foot chase before being apprehended. And dramatic video of an incredible rescue as a skier was found buried in deep snow at Palisades Tahoe in California. 2 other skiers spotted the man, sprung into action, digging him out and saving his life. And coming up, round 3 of nuclear talks with Iran wrapping up for the day as we wait to hear what happened behind closed doors.
But we'll see what the outcome of these negotiations are, but whatever they are, unless we have our own people there making sure that that program is stopped, I don't trust them one bit.
The question is, are negotiations going well enough to convince the president not to strike Iran? We'll ask the panel next.
Gold Bond believes superpower is positioning himself as the common sense guy who's advocating for positions that the vast majority of Americans want.
Our country has never been stronger. In my first 10 months, I ended 8 wars, including Cambodia. Isn't it funny? Sick people. Cambodia and Thailand. Pakistan and India would have been a nuclear war. 35 million people said the Prime Minister of Pakistan would have died if it were not for my involvement.
And there was one moment at the beginning where he invited the USA hockey team, and of course the crowd went wild chanting USA, USA, and then the camera panned to Rashida Tlaib, who appeared to be mouthing KKK. And then again, you had another moment where Trump says, stand up if you want to support American citizens over illegal aliens. And instead, Ilhan Omar is screaming and heckling the president.
Members of Congress and my fellow Americans, our nation is back, bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before. Less than 5 months from now, our country will celebrate an epic milestone in American history, the 250th anniversary of our glorious American independence. This July 4th, we will mark 2.5 centuries of liberty and triumph, progress and freedom in the most incredible and exceptional nation ever to exist on the face of the earth. And
girl, if you don't shut the up and go back to Somalia, ain't nobody trying to hear that shit.
And those are the best kind of sound bites and visuals that the GOP could have for the midterms.
I think the part of the speech that's probably going to live on for most Republicans is when he asked the Congress, stand up if you think your duty is first to American citizens before illegal aliens. Republicans stood up. It gave him his most sustained applause for the night. I suspect, man, you're going to see this in a lot of campaign ads that Democrats wouldn't stand up. What did you all think of the showmanship of that, or of sort of the spectacle of trying to get Democrats to stand up for that?
Well, I think the point, I think that you know, it may have gotten a little muddled, but, you know, in the showmanship, but I think his point is valid. Everybody in that room represents the citizens in this country. And are you doing your job? He should, you know, the governor asked, is Trump doing his job? Trump asked, are all of you doing your job? But don't.
So we actually have a little something tonight for our friends on the left, and you'll have to tune in to see what we're planning. I think that that's really what people saw last night, was that clear divide of people who are willing to stand up for America and those that are going to sit on their hands. And so you saw that clear divide in the room. I was the only Republican sitting on the Democrat side because I believe you need to lead by example. We're willing to stand for America, and they just want to sit it out. That is what America needs to think about when they go to vote in these November midterms. America is back, baby. We are so excited. I might go run through the Capitol playing Freebird.
The president was setting up Democrats in a really simple and easy way. They shouldn't have fallen for it. It seems pretty easy to stand up and say, actually, no, I support American people first. That is where I stand. and we can have a nuanced conversation afterwards if you want about illegal immigration. But they walked into that trap because it was so easy to set.
Well, but that's not true. I mean, I stand for
most Democrats did not stand.
I stand for Americans over non-citizens, and so do all of my colleagues. But just because it's not the Galactic Senate, just because the Emperor says rise doesn't mean I get up. Like I'm a different branch of government. I rose for the heroes that were in the gallery, not because the president
not for the others.
In the span of just one generation, Democrats went from having pride in America at basically the same level as Republicans to now only a third of Democrats feel that way. And so Republican numbers have held. Nothing too strange there. And so really, what's going on here with the Democrats? Well, imagine being a Democrat and refusing to stand for Americans over illegals, voter ID, lowest murder rate in 125 years, ending fraud and waste, angel families, tough on crime policies, no tax on tips, overtime, or Social Security, crushing fentanyl, a secure border. That's exactly what Democrats refuse to stand for. And that tells you everything. One of my YouTube coaching students asked me today, I guess to them, I'm a bit of a mentor, and in helping them build out shows like mine and grow their channel and podcasts to not only spread the truth, but also earn an honest and respectable income and build a business in the process. And an inspiration to me, as well as a fellow creative in this space, the David Boland has reaffirmed and is proof positive that you don't need a job, you only need income. But basically what it all boiled down to was that the astute realization of, in essence, perhaps at its core and explained in simplest form, the Democrat Party is not a political party anymore. It is morphed. They're more so acting as a foreign-controlled domestic terrorist organization masquerading as a political party to bring down America. And Trump, he's calling them out straight to their faces, and they still don't get it. Or how about this? And the fact that Democrats don't wave American flags. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Point. I mean, you rose because, and thank you for rising. I think in those cases that this is an easy moment to be united, whether it's around Team USA or it's around any of the people who were featured there. But that's sending a message that you agree with the statement or the sentiment, and you chose not to stand.
Well, I'm sure if Joe Biden told the Republicans to rise, they would have leapt from their seats.
But to that point, doesn't that happen at every single State of the Union address? The president says something innocuous, the party that is the opposite party doesn't stand. That happens every single year.
Yeah, but I don't feel like
understand
this.
why
I
we're
don't feel like
pretending
these
like this is
shouting
some kind of
matches.
And to Abby Phillips's point, Trump saying something innocuous or harmless that the other party doesn't like shouldn't necessarily force them to stand and rise as if he's their king and but yet mere humble servants. However, what was it about standing for the survivors of victims who've all lost loved ones at the hand of illegals that Democrats opened up our borders and flew in and gave $10,000 debit cards to and free housing and food that they all disagreed with? Well, not all, actually. Senator John Fetterman gets it. He's still for decency, common sense, and the American first way.
I think we have to find a way, if we can be in the same room, we can disagree on these things. You don't have to sign off on everything. You don't have to agree with everything. And now, if I hear something that I agree with or I like that, hey, I'm going to stand up and clap for those things. And I think, and if someone's angry that I shook the president's hand as he walked in, that's I think that's on them. And I think some of the people that were angry that I did that, they didn't really have a problem when Mandami visited with the White House too. So, like, if we refuse to talk to the other side, I mean, that's the only one that really loses. That's America.
Fetterman's has absolutely had some banger takes in the last few days, but the Democrats truly want America to lose. They are training their cult-like followers in some parts of the rest of the world at that to hate Trump and in turn hate America. And They leverage the fake news media to execute in attempting to accomplish their brainwashing goal.
Welcome to another episode of Typology. Here in Taiwan, where I'm recording, it's still January 20th. So we are exactly 1 year into the Trump presidency. And if you watch my channel, I'm going to assume that you've been keeping up with the news. So I don't have to remind you how crazy it has been in the past year. I mean, we're barely a few weeks into 2026, and it just seems like the pace of the insanity has only accelerated. And the epicenter of all this insanity that's going on in the world, from Venezuela to Iran to now Greenland, the epicenter comes from one place: Donald J. Trump. So, yeah, just today, on this one single day, he's been out of pocket in so many ways. I've seen him put out on his social media all these embarrassing personal tweets from European leaders like Macron and Rutte, posting AI slop of himself raising a flag over Greenland, an American flag over Greenland. And even after all this time, the entirety of Trump 1 plus 1 year of the second Trump term, I still can't wrap my head around his absolute vulgarity. It just never ceases to amaze me. It's so unhinged sometimes that I can't help but think to myself, is this the real life? I demand to be returned to my original timeline. It just doesn't feel real. I didn't vote for Trump, although I didn't like Kamala either. I did support her on my social media, even though I knew she was just not the right person for the job, not anywhere near up to the challenge. She was an empty suit. But still, out of the two of them, I could see that she was the worst, or the better of the two evils, right? So that's why I supported her. But interestingly, on election night, when the numbers started coming out and it became very obvious that Trump was just completely kicking her ass, I realized I felt this weird sensation, and I didn't know what it was, but then I realized, oh my God, I'm actually feeling a tremendous sense of relief that Kamala wasn't going to be the next president of the United States. At the time, it really bothered me. I actually couldn't completely articulate why I was feeling that way, even though, as the last year proved conclusively, Donald Trump is absolutely batshit. He's craven, he's irresponsible, and it's frankly mind-boggling that there are not enough checks and balances in the American system to make sure that somebody like him came into power not once, but twice, right? But here's the thing, though. I've also seen enough of the Democratic Party and their approach to solving the deep problems in the world that I knew it wasn't going to work. After Joe Biden's term, his 4 years in office, I felt really deeply that it was kind of the end of the road for that whole framework.
And so I just happened to come across this young lady's recent post on X celebrating her finally reaching YouTube monetization and earning a little over $20. For several months of arduous work and grinding, essentially, and she was a case study for CSM school as I was teaching my students and coaching my clients on the best practices for growing on YouTube with speed and, more so importantly, being compensated for your hard work and effort justly. Because $20 after having started nearly 20 years ago is actually insane if you ask me. However, she had just posted this. congratulating herself with a self-performed pat on her own back, stating how she was proud of her YouTube channel getting monetized. She says, and I quote, "So a belated Happy New Year of the horse to everyone. And remember, sometimes impossible things become possible, not because you worked on it, but in the fullness of time." And not to be rude, but that really does sound like something Kamala Harris would say. I mean, and not only that, but getting monetized on YouTube is not impossible, so long as you know what you're doing. And much like everything else you want in life, you should align yourself with those who've done it and are doing it, the thing that it is you want, and seeking their expert advice and tutelage. That's just my 2 cents. I get channels monetized. It's really quite easy at this point, but what's more important than just getting monetized is actually making real money. Income that could replace your job if you wanted it to. Not $20 after 4 months, you see? Yeah. Another case study here. Rob the Maritimer says, YouTube is demonetizing channels, leveraging the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of potential risk you could possibly face. But the reality is monetization is far more secure and definitely more lucrative when you don't leave it in the hands of the platform, Google or Alphabet. That's what I teach my students in CSM school. We are successfully executing on the mission, which is to create a society, a community of real content creators, moving away from the fake influencer trap and AI slop. That's why you join CSM school. You build a real business, so you never have to even bother to concern yourself with fear-based titles like Rob's here, because you don't rely on the whims of the algorithm to keep you fed. But I want to circle back around to Angelica here for a bit, because she is concrete proof and evidence of what I want to highlight. And that is pointing out the blatant lies and hypocrisy of the left. Because if it weren't for the media, I doubt she would have any opinion of Donald Trump at all, let alone this terribly skewed projection that she's attempting to amplify and spread more propaganda and rhetoric across the internet with her videos. Granted, she recorded this on January 20th, but her point about the pace of insanity accelerating, technically, she's spot on, just not in the way she thinks. The real insanity is ramped up from the left and Democrats since then. Look at the escalating attacks on federal agents. In Minneapolis, protesters like Alex Preddy and Renee Good clashed with ICE and Border Patrol officers during immigration enforcement ops, leading to deadly confrontations where agents were assaulted, vehicles damaged, physical struggles ensued, amid anti-ICE rhetoric comparing them to Gestapo or worse. DHS reported over 180 vehicle attacks on agents since Trump took office, with massive spikes in assaults and threats, clearly fueled by inflammatory Democrat-aligned narratives demonizing law enforcement. I mean, I even came across this one story here where ICE agents, busy arresting an illegal alien, had to send this 80-year-old liberal down to the ground after they tried to impede and obstruct federal officers and agents. And fortunately for him, the result was just him getting sent to the floor by an ICE agent. But we can all take a guess at where someone would get this insane idea to interfere with federal agents conducting business and making arrests. Talk about insanity ramping up from one party over the other. But then there's New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani requiring 2 forms of ID plus copies and a social security card for volunteers to shovel snow during a blizzard emergency program. House Republicans nailed it, much like Trump said during his State of the Union speech. In Zohran Mamdani's socialist utopia, it takes 2 forms of ID to shovel snow, but no ID to vote. Now, granted, Sarah Rose here uses choice words in a post that reads, Trump calls out goat commie Mamdani's hypocrisy, reiterating, if you apply to shovel snow, you need to show 2 forms of ID and a social security card, yet no ID for the greatest privilege of them all, voting. The hypocrisy is glaring. Democrats fight tooth and nail against simple voter ID laws to protect free and fair elections, yet demand piles of paperwork for temporary gig clearing sidewalks.
And even I think he's a nice guy, actually. Speak to him. See, but nice guy. Just said they want people to shovel snow. They got hit hard. Wants them to shovel snow, but if you apply for that job, you need to show 2 original forms of ID and a Social Security card. Yet they don't want identification for the greatest privilege of them all, voting in America. No, it's no good. No good. Both Republicans and Democrats overwhelmingly agree on the policy that we just enunciated. And Congress should unite and enact this common sense, country-saving legislation right now, and it should be before anything else happens.
Oh, and not only are New Yorkers digging out from a major blizzard, but Mamdani's solution was to pay randos $30 an hour to shovel snow off streets and sidewalks. It seems a bit excessive, don't you think? This, granted, was only after the city's first failed attempt that Mamdani tried and offering $19 an hour, but then hiked it to $30 an hour, which that makes it $45 an hour with overtime. That's more than many workers earn. These socialists better watch out, because with that level of income, they soon, too, will become the rich they very much all want to eat.
You actually can blame Zohran Mamdani for these nasty snow piles. Here's exactly how he failed and how New York City got so bad. In honor of the Super Bowl, I made a bracket. Mamdani, the mayor, is essentially the team captain for New York City's snow response. He failed on all 4 options that he had. First up, Department of Sanitation of New York. Instead of picking up trash, Mamdani had sanitation workers prioritize plowing streets, which resulted in a 24-hour delay across the city in trash removal. A 24-hour delay allowed the trash to freeze solid and get covered in more snow. Trash everywhere. A Department of Transportation. Mamdani didn't tell the Department of Transportation to prioritize bus stops and crosswalks, which left the elderly and disabled stranded. Mamdani's house was cleared perfectly. Public transportation was a mess. Third option was FEMA. Zohran Mamdani did not declare a local state of emergency to get reimbursements from FEMA. FEMA would have reimbursed up to 75% of costs for overtime, extra workers, extra equipment, shelter, transportation. And New York City used FEMA in 2022, 2017, and 2016. So the only reason Mamdani didn't want to use it is because he clearly didn't want Trump to get any credit. So the city had to absorb the cost of the crisis alone. The 4th place he failed was with New Yorkers. Mamdani did not force homeless New Yorkers into shelters despite negative 15-degree temperatures. He also confused New Yorkers by telling us to call 311 instead of 911 if you saw a homeless person during the storm, and 311 didn't know how to direct the calls. But yes, Zohran Mamdani is to blame for this disaster of a response. I'm not just criticizing, I actually have a plan. Check out my next video.
But don't forget the ongoing threats. Multiple attempts on Trump's life, plus heightened security risks tied to polarized, violent rhetoric. The pace has indeed accelerated. It's just the left's unhinged resistance to accountability and secure borders that's driving it. But her Angelica, the Taiwanese woman, tying Trump to insanity in Venezuela and Iran, that's pure MSM brainwashing. Trump didn't initiate chaos there. He delivered results. Under his leadership, the U.S. captured Nicolas Maduro. After Biden's administration already raised the bounty to $25 million, Venezuelans worldwide celebrated, thanking Trump for liberating them from a narco dictator. It was a swift, drama-free, and built on prior bipartisan pressure. Only someone glued to headlines without digging deeper could spin that as Trump insanity, especially from Taiwan, where you'd think they'd appreciate decisive action against authoritarian threats, right? And if you've seen embarrassing posts on Trump's feed, remember, those are shares of what other posts themselves. Meanwhile, the best, most effective content from Trump and Rapid Response 47 gets zero airtime on mainstream outlets designed to fuel Trump hate. You can't stomach Trump's vulgarity? Fair enough. But try wrapping your head around Ilhan Omar's repeated inflammatory rhetoric, Jacob Fry's handling of riots and defund the police chaos, or the nonstop vulgarity and unhinged behavior from countless Democrat figures. Selective outrage much? Speaking of unhinged, You admit you didn't vote for Trump, didn't even like Kamala, calling her, and I quote, an empty suit unfit for the job. Yet you publicly supported her anyway. You felt tremendous relief when she lost, knowing the extend and pretend framework was doomed. That right there proves the media's success. They didn't make you love Kamala. They just made you hate Trump more, enough to back someone you knew wasn't up to it. You can't articulate a solid evidence-based case that Trump has been craven and irresponsible over the past year, and the American people spoke twice and arguably 3 times in free and fair elections. That's not a fluke. That's democracy in action. The very checks and balances Democrats claim to champion, yet they oppose basic voter ID to preserve it. Democrats aren't solving deep problems, they're perpetuating them. You knew it wouldn't work. Supported the unqualified anyway and opposed the winners. Please, someone make that make sense. But in the end, congratulations on your monetization. You've reached an awesome milestone. I'm happy for you. But might I share just a bit of a quick advice for future political takes? And the algorithm and viewers reward clarity and facts over confusion. You've been trained by Democrat-led media, but breaking free with real research will grow your channel faster. Your audience wants truth, not headlines. Do what I do. Just copy me. It's actually really simple because all I do is keep it real. And quit subscribing to the mainstream media garbage because their sole purpose, their only job is to make you think that the views of 10% of the country are actually the views of 90% of the country.
Because a lot of people might not like Donald Trump and might be kind of hemming and hawing, and then they look at the alternative and they say, oh, well, this really angry woman, gosh, I don't know about her. So that's what Trump set out to do.
But that was my question.
Highlight the 80-20 issues.
In response to his...
But as I live and breathe, and this is one for the books, ladies and gentlemen, save this or bookmark it and screenshot it. CBS caved. Or we see them bend the knee here and side with America as they report 3 out of 4 approve of President Trump and his State of the Union speech. 75% approve, and of that overwhelming majority, let's add one more Dem to the list here, alongside Senator John Fetterman, as Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer stuns the entire room by thanking President Trump for the historic investments now coming into the state. Watch.
Michigan is open for business. New factories making batteries, cars, chips are opening in Marshall, Lake Orion, Holland, Bay City, Calumet, Hemlock, Ann Arbor, and Delta Township. A new fighter mission is coming to Selfridge Air National Guard Base in Macomb County. Probably not on the bingo card, but I want to thank President Trump for his work on this.
This is what is called normal. But at some point, Democrats, as a party, collectively, will all have to admit that President Trump is making America great again. Something no Democrat president could ever do. As all the seeds President Trump sows bears fruit, the compelling evidence will be stark and unequivocal from now until the end of 2028.
All about no tax on tips. Of the ladies and guys in red, who loves no tax on tips? What's your name?
Macy.
So Macy, how has it impacted you?
Honestly, it's been great. I actually just filed mine and got my tax return, so all of the money that I have gotten back, I've been able to put towards my school tuition, which has helped out a lot.
Fantastic. And
the $25,000 tax credit's been a total game changer, being the majority of our income is tips.
And you no longer have to launder your money, right?
Exactly.
Yeah! Laura from Georgia! You're watching Fox and Friends from Dog's Place in Emerson.
But for now, the Dems are just floundering, desperately scrambling in utter panic mode to clean up the mess from the other night. And so you see, Donald Trump's superpower is taking the common sense position, forcing Democrats to take the opposite side and making them look crazy. The State of the Union from the other night was filled with America First Republicans' chants of USA in support of the men's hockey team that broke out, while Rashida Tlaib mouthed KKK. As Republicans stood to show that they stand for American citizens over illegal aliens, Ilhan Omar screamed at the top of her lungs and heckled Trump. That juxtaposition of Trump with two bitter and out-of-touch women is exactly the imagery the GOP needs. And here's more imagery the GOP needs. Well-deserved praise for President Trump's historic State of the Union speech headlining these newspapers. And so you see, this here is the hill Democrats have, figuratively speaking, chosen to die on. Defending illegal immigration, defunding the police, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory, no voter ID to vote, abortion on demand, transgender children, often referring to gender affirming care or transitions for minors, men in women's sports and bathrooms, sanctuary cities, abolishing ICE, student loan forgiveness, gun grabbing, gun control or confiscation efforts, no cash for bail, opposing cash bail, for instance, supporting bail reform or no cash bail policies, and defending fraud, waste, and abuse in government spending. But I do want to talk more on fraud, waste, and abuse in just a moment. But right now, real quick, we've got this update here, and just in, one of the men who pelted NYPD officers with balls of ice has been arrested. Naturally, this has led to the expected reaction that is infuriating Mayor Mamdani, who apparently lied and said the assailants were kids. But the arrestee is a 27-year-old West African named Gasmani Coulibaly. But it's no wonder why New Yorkers keep giving Mamdani the finger.
The NYPD making an arrest in Monday's snowball attack on police in Washington Square Park. The 27-year-old Guzman Coulibaly is under arrest for his role in Monday's attack that left 2 New York police officers injured. Coulibaly is no stranger to police. He was arrested just a few weeks ago for an attempted robbery in the transit system. You'll remember this is how Mayor Mamdani described Monday's incident.
I can just tell you from the video I saw, it looked like kids at a snowball fight.
Kids at a snowball.
The governor of New York was asked about Monday's attack and said this.
Our police officers put themselves in harm's way every single day, and there is no circumstance where it's okay to throw anything at a police officer, so that is appropriate.
Stand by.
No mayor should not respect the men and women of the NYPD. Mamdani's no mayor. This is DSA, communist political theater, nothing more than a clown show. But now, circling back around to the Democrats defending fraud, waste, and abuse, we haven't heard a peep out of Tim Walz in a little while, right? I think I know why.
So we're announcing today that we have decided to temporarily halt certain amounts of Medicaid funding that are going to the state of Minnesota in order to ensure that the state of Minnesota takes its obligations seriously to be good stewards of the American people's tax money. Now, what is this going to mean? What this means is that, first of all, the providers on the ground in Minnesota have actually already been paid. The state has paid those providers the money. What we're doing is we are stopping the federal payments that will go to the state government until the state government takes its obligations seriously to stop the fraud that's being perpetrated against the American taxpayer. There are a few different ways that we're doing that. There are a few different affirmative actions that we're taking today. Dr. Oz is going to talk about those, but let me talk a little bit about the spirit of this and why we're doing it. So number one of the examples of fraud that we've seen in Minnesota that we verified that is just awful is that a program that existed to ensure that autistic children had access to some after-school services has made a number of people rich, not by providing services to needy children, but by allowing fraudsters to take money that ought by right go to American citizens and to American families, and to set up sham businesses, set up sham clients, set up people who are not even autistic but claim to be autistic in order that they benefit from the money that's out there. Now, what does that mean? Number one, it means that a lot of people are getting rich off the generosity of American taxpayers, but more fundamentally and more importantly than that, it means that there are kids in Minnesota who deserve these services, who need these services, and they're not going to those kids, they're going to fraudsters in Minneapolis. That is unacceptable, and that's the sort of thing that we're cutting off with this action today. Let me make one final point about the spirit of this. You know, one of the things I love about our country is that we're a generous country, we're a generous people. We take care of our fellow citizens who can't afford medical care because they're down on their luck. We take care of people who can't afford to put food on the table even though they work hard and play by the rules. We recognize that we're all in this together, and part of the reason why we have Medicaid, or part of the reason why we have food stamps, part of the reason why we have these programs is we want to make sure that kids who grew up in families not all that different from the family that I grew up in, that they have access to the basic necessities: food, medical care, after school services when their family needs them but they're unable to pay. What's happening in Minneapolis, in California, in a number of states all across our country is that the generosity and the good hearts of our fellow Americans are being taken advantage of. We're taking that social contract that says that our American citizens, we take care of one another, and we're allowing a few bad actors to get rich off that generosity of spirit instead of providing the services to the kids who need it. This is disgraceful. It has happened for too long. Far too many people have gotten rich by taking what is the best of the American spirit and getting rich off of it instead of providing services to kids who need it.
That I have to point out Ilhan Omar. She repulses me, and I'm trying to find out why, because she's not unattractive. She has an unusual amount and kind of anger. Mm-hmm. She has no right to that level of rage in the United States of America, the country who gave her corrupt ass a new life. It's not like she's a homeless Vietnam vet who can't get services and should be enraged at the government. She should be kissing the ground she walks on instead of spitting on it. And her anger is also reminds me of the radical who, given power, would destroy you. She would show no mercy for you if you were below her. Like, the look on her face is somebody who would step on your neck instead of giving you a hand. And that is not the kind of person we should have in our leadership. It's not the type of person we should have in this country. And if we find out that she screwed up on her immigration stuff, she's got to go.
Yeah, she should be thanking President Trump for finding fraud.
Lady, why don't you just get out the Democratic Party? Honestly, start your own movement. All right, let's do the simple math. Probably 69%, I don't know, we could call Jim Gerstein or Jeff Garrett. Roughly 69% of the people going to vote in November, maybe more. Let's do 70 for just round math, are going to be white. Of that, 48%, maybe a little more, are going to be male. So that's roughly, let's just call it 33.33% of the entire election. Well, let's just run against them because that's so goddamn smart. All right. So now we're going to have a campaign by the progressive left against white men who vote about a third of everybody that votes in an election. Why don't you, lady, start your own party? And then when it's over, if you want to caucus with the Democrats, fine. We agree with a lot of things that you do, but we don't believe we ought to be running against white men. In fact, we don't think we ought to be running against any gender, any ethnic group, any race, any religion, or anything else. Goddamn, these people are just helpless. They cannot be helped. There's nothing you can do to help them. They don't want to be helped. And if they had any guts, they'd start their own goddamn political party and get out of ours. Sorry.
And you know it's bad when you've got James Carville telling Ilhan Omar, lady, why don't you just get out of the Democratic Party? But this compilation in my show tonight is just a natural progression of the conversation after J.D. Vance shared the blatant and egregious fraud, waste, and abuse in Minnesota. But tip of the iceberg is a drastic understatement. We're going to have to withhold a lot more than $260 million. And he's right. We are a very generous country, perhaps too generous when it comes to someone like Ilhan Omar, who actually made her first public appearance since her infamous State of the Union outburst. And it was a total disaster. Watch her here on CNN's Wolf Blitzer show as he gave her 3 chances to apologize for her barbaric behavior last night, but she refused every single one. She ought to be deported and sit back home.
The House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, advised your caucus, the Democratic members, to either skip the State of the Union address or sit there in silence. Should you have just boycotted the address, and do you think you violated the guidelines set out by your own leader?
No, I think it was really unavoidable. The president talked about protecting Americans, and I just had to remind him that his administration was responsible for killing 2 of my constituents.
In Minneapolis, many members of your Democratic Party criticized their Republican counterparts when they interrupted President Biden's State of the Union address, as a lot of us remember. Do you have any regrets at all about the interaction we played between you and President Trump just last night?
I do not, and I think many people look at that moment when the president says it is our responsibility to protect Americans, and he does not acknowledge the fact that 2 Americans, 2 of my constituents, 2 of our neighbors were killed, and it was important for me to just remind the American people that the president and his administration was responsible for killing 2 American citizens.
With hindsight, Congresswoman, do you think you would have been better off boycotting the speech like so many other Democratic lawmakers did, or did you do the right thing by actually showing up there?
I brought 4 Minnesotans as guests for the Minnesota delegation. It was important for us to be there, to bear witness, to hold the space for our constituents that have lived through an occupation from federal law enforcement, that have been terrorized, that have seen our neighbors been killed and traumatized in so many ways. And so, no, I think it was really important for my constituents to see me there. It was really important to my constituents to hear that I was reminding the president that Renee Good and Alex Preddy were killed under this administration.
Okay, got it. She just wanted to be seen. This is all for show for her. But Ilhan Omar, she brought guests, all right. And I just want you all to know, U.S. Capitol Police arrested Ilhan Omar's State of the Union guest after she refused to stop standing and blocking others in the gallery during Trump's speech. And I would like to point out, this is the same deranged activist with prior arrests in Minneapolis for using her car to block ICE agents' cars on a street. These people are fucked in the head. No wonder they always end up violent. Now it's time to arrest Omar.
Is that this is an ongoing fear and threat for people around this country. What happened to me is absolutely not new in the history of this country, and we have not seen accountability that gives me any reason to believe this won't be done to somebody else. So that's what I'm thinking about today. And honestly, I'm glad that it's me sitting in that seat rather than somebody who's cheering for what happened to me.
But I'll say it again. And not in my near 41 years on this planet have I ever seen a man so fortunate in his enemies as Donald J. Trump. He tells them it's a trap. He shows them where the trap is. He says they should avoid the trap. They walk right into the trap. Absolutely amazing how easy this was to do. almost as easy as calling my friends at Chapter for free advice and having them look into potential savings on your Medicare.
A trap, and they fell right into it because they cannot help themselves. They truly stand on the side of the tens of millions of illegal aliens who they allowed to pour in to our nation's open borders under the Biden administration. They truly stand on the side of career criminals who have gone to jail not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 12 times in the case of the young woman in North Carolina whose neck was slit by a career criminal who was released back onto the streets in North Carolina by Democrat policies, and they could not even stand for her heartbroken mother who President Trump was commending last night. They couldn't even stand for a young girl who is now suffering a brain problem for the rest of her life because of an illegal alien truck driver who smashed into her family's vehicle. It was so despicable to be in that chamber and to watch as these Democrats really did show their true colors. But to your point, the president, it was a brilliant idea. It was his idea to put that into the speech, and it proved to be right because he wanted the American people to know that this is a choice between common sense and President Trump and Republicans and crazy radical Democrats who stand for nothing except for being against Donald Trump.
No,
You're
I'm
going
pointing
to
out
attack
facts.
me. I'm going to respond.
I'm pointing out facts. You can say what you want. I'm just pointing out facts. Anyways, I ranted too long. Let's talk about some.
Yes, you did.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask your opinion on that. And if I cared about your opinion, I would ask you. But I don't care about your opinion.
Well,
you're part of the system. You're part of the problem. You've been sitting here longer than I've even been alive. This is your problem. You should have fixed this a long time ago.
Donald Trump, when he asked the question about cheering and asking about protecting American citizens and prioritizing them ahead of migrants, he set you up. He knew you weren't going to stand. He knew 73 of y'all were going to show up to other places and not show up to the State of the Union. He knew that a lot of Americans that were moderates on both sides of the aisle were going to look at y'all as being every bit as out of control as you claim he is. The difference is that he takes those positions and the heat that comes with it as the incumbent, the president in office. You couldn't keep him out. And he's making the claim that you hate him so much, you're devoid of objectivity, and you're devoid of thinking about what's in the best interest of the United States of America because you're too busy thinking about your own personal feelings and animus towards him. And every time you do that, he smiles and mocks you and has a field day.
Last night, Trump outsmarted all of his political opponents with this single move.
One of the great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe.
I love that the camera is on this guy because this summarizes the entire dynamic. You see him perk up like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, no. Is this really about to happen? Yes, it is. He's embracing the concept of show, don't tell. At the last State of the Union, they realized this worked really well, so they just fine-tuned it, amped it up. He begins by setting the stage.
Because we finally have a president who puts America first. Put America first.
He then introduces a policy change that Congress is not going to be able to engage in insider trading anymore. This forces them to concede.
They stood up for that. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Did Nancy Pelosi stand up if she's here? Doubt it.
Trump then doubles down on show, don't tell by using example after example after example.
Delilah Colton was only 5 years old in June. Elizabeth Medina was supposed to perform in her town's Christmas parade.
His opponents will claim these are just anecdotes. Yes, but they're anecdotes that could have been prevented. And there's no denying that. These things happened. Their family is there in the room. He already knows they're not going to stand, but he then begins to bait them in just to ensure the outcome.
And it is the American people who pay the price in higher medical bills, car insurance rates, rent, taxes, and perhaps most importantly, crime. We will take care of this problem. We're going to take care of this problem. We are not playing games.
Now the stage is set. He moves in for the kill. I've never seen anything like this in a State of the Union.
One of the great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle.
He's so nervous. He's literally biting his fingernails.
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
Would anyone deny that, regardless of how you feel about Trump? Rather than pointing out they're not standing up, he's requesting that they stand up to show support for something. Now he waits and lets it sink in. It's difficult to believe that half of the government could be so stupid to allow themselves to fall into this trap. A lot of thought went into how to phrase the wording of this. It was designed to trap them, and it did. It was worded perfectly. I mean, just look how long this went on for. I wish the cameras had focused on their faces more. We get a few examples here, and you could just imagine the people at home and how they're feeling, looking at their screens. And they're just like, crap, there's no way out of this. It's almost like he's thinking, well, you kind of have to respect it. It was so well done. All they can do is wait for it to be over.
Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up.
Now the stage is set. Now he proposes the Save America Act.
You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens, in many cases drug lords.
And Ilhan Omar is pissed.
Murderers all over our country. They're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm asking you to approve the Save America Act.
Then he moves to voter ID, and this is the final nail in the coffin.
All voters must show proof of citizenship in order to vote.
The first principles have been laid out, and now it becomes even more clear when he introduces the concept of voter ID and that they won't allow voter ID to occur.
And no more crooked mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. None.
That's why he timed this perfectly. He brought this one in right when the eyeballs are on this the most.
And even the new communist mayor of New York City, I think he's a nice guy, actually.
He points out the hypocrisy. Well, Mondami, in New York to shovel snow, you need voter ID. That was his requirement, therefore, logically, he knows it's necessary.
Wants him to shovel snow, but if you apply for that job, you need to show 2 original forms of ID and a social security card.
But not when it comes to voting. And there's no counter to this, and that is checkmate.
Yet they don't want identification for the greatest privilege of them all, voting in America. Now it's no good.
And when you see something like this, it does cause you to question the validity and fairness of the process itself. This is pretty damning evidence. He set the stage, he created the perfect spectacle, and then hammers it home.
And Congress should unite and enact this common sense, country-saving, legislation right now, and it should be before anything else happens.
If you disagree, fine. Let me know. Where am I wrong about this?
And the reason they don't want to do it, why would anybody not want voter ID? One reason, because they want to cheat. There's only one reason.
Trying to look at this objectively through the lens of optics. This is going to have an impact.
They make up all excuses. They say it's racist. They come up with things. You almost say, what imagination they have. They want to cheat. They have cheated. And their policy is so bad that the only way they can get elected is to cheat.
Overall,